Have you ever woken up on an ordinary morning and for a few seconds couldn't remember why you should get out of bed? Not because of depression or illness, but because of a strange sensation that nothing you'll do today really matters, that all the tasks, appointments, and responsibilities filling your days are just noise, distraction from something much deeper you've lost along the way? If you've ever felt this, know that you're not alone. In fact, you've experienced a moment of clarity about one of the most silent and devastating crises of our time. Millions of people around the world are living a peculiar form of living death, a slow and imperceptible deterioration of something that for millennia was considered the essence of human experience. And the most frightening part is that most don't even realize they've lost it. I'm talking about our capacity to experience the sacred, not in the traditional religious sense, though that's also part of the problem, but in the more fundamental sense of being able to perceive depth, mystery, and transcendent meaning in everyday existence. Throughout all of human history, our ancestors lived immersed in a world full of meaning. Every birth was a miracle, every death a mysterious passage, every season a manifestation of greater forces than themselves. The world wasn't just a collection of objects and mechanical processes, but a living tapestry of symbols, stories, and invisible connections that gave meaning even to the simplest moments of life. Imagine a medieval peasant waking before dawn. He doesn't check his smartphone for notifications or worry about productivity metrics. Instead, he hears the distant church bells calling for morning prayer, and for a few moments feels he's part of something infinitely greater than himself. His daily tasks, however humble, are embedded in a cosmic narrative that connects his individual life to the destiny of his community, his soul, and the entire universe. When he plants seeds, he is not just executing an economic function, he is participating in the eternal cycle of death and rebirth that governs all existence. When he contemplates the stars, he doesn't see distant points of light, but silent witnesses to his spiritual journey. This ability to perceive the sacred wasn't the privilege of just mystics or the particularly religious. It was the standard human condition. Anthropologists who have studied traditional societies discovered that regardless of their specific beliefs, all human cultures developed sophisticated ways of cultivating transcendent experiences, rites of passage that transformed biological events into spiritual milestones, ceremonies that connected the community to the cosmos, contemplative practices that allowed individuals to experience states of consciousness where the boundary between self and universe temporarily dissolved. These weren't primitive or ignorant societies. They were civilizations that understood something fundamental about the human psyche that we, in our supposed sophistication, have completely forgotten. They knew that human beings cannot thrive on bread, entertainment, and material security alone. We need a visceral connection to the mystery of existence. We need to feel that our individual life is part of a story much larger and more beautiful than we can fully comprehend. And then came modernity, bringing with it one of the most radical transformations in human history. In the name of reason, science, and progress, we began systematically dismantling all the structures that allowed humans to experience the sacred. It wasn't a deliberately malicious process. It was presented as liberation. Liberation from superstition, obscurantism, oppressive religious authority. And indeed, it brought immeasurable benefits. Modern medicine saved billions of lives. Technology connected the world. The scientific method gave us extraordinary understanding of the nature of reality, but there was a price that no one adequately calculated. In discarding what we considered illusions of the past, we ended up throwing away our innate capacity to perceive transcendent meaning. The world ceased to be a living temple and became a giant machine. Human beings ceased to be children of the cosmos and became evolutionary accidents in a cold and indifferent universe. Life ceased to be a sacred journey and became a series of random events between two voids, birth and death. The result was what philosophers call the disenchantment of the world. Max Weber, one of the most insightful thinkers of the 20th century, described this process as the gradual elimination of everything mysterious, magical, and meaningful from human experience. The modern world, he said, is like a giant clockwork mechanism, perfectly predictable and completely empty of intrinsic purpose. We live today with the consequences of this transformation in ways we can barely recognize. The epidemic of anxiety and depression that plagues especially the most developed countries isn't just an individual mental health problem, it's the symptom of an entire civilization that has lost contact with the deep sources of meaning that sustained humanity for millennia. When researchers study suicide rates, they discover something paradoxical and disturbing. The richest, safest, and most technologically advanced societies in the world have some of the highest rates of existential despair. Why does this happen? Because we've created a materially abundant but spiritually sterile world. A world where all physical needs can be satisfied, but where the human soul withers from starvation. We've developed technologies capable of connecting any person to any other on the planet in seconds, but we've lost the ability to connect deeply with ourselves and with the mystery of existence. Look at your own typical day, and you'll see the signs of this silent spiritual death. How many moments can you identify where you experienced something we could call sacred? Moments of genuine wonder, of deep connection with something greater than yourself, of perceiving the transcendent beauty that permeates reality. For most people, such moments are extremely rare if they occur at all. Instead, we spend our days navigating between infinite distractions, consuming superficial entertainment, pursuing goals that deep down we know won't bring us the fulfillment we seek. Digital technology has dramatically intensified this process. Our devices are designed to capture and fragment our attention in ways that make deep contemplation almost impossible. Social media has addicted us to constant doses of external validation, destroying our capacity to find satisfaction in contemplative solitude. Algorithms feed us an endless stream of content optimized to keep us engaged, but never truly nourished. The result is that millions of people live in a state of perpetual agitation, always stimulated but never truly satisfied, always connected but profoundly alone, always informed about everything happening in the world, but completely disconnected from the miracle of their own existence. But perhaps the most tragic aspect of this situation is that we don't even realize what we've lost. An entire generation has grown up without ever having consistently experienced the sacred, so they don't miss something they never knew. It's as if we were born in a world without colors and became accustomed to living in shades of gray, never imagining what we're missing. Think about the most meaningful moments of your life. They were probably moments where you experienced, even briefly, something transcendent, perhaps contemplating a sunset and feeling an inexplicable connection to the universe, perhaps holding your newborn child and perceiving that you were before a mystery that no scientific explanation could completely exhaust, perhaps hearing a piece of music that somehow touched something eternal within you, perhaps in a moment of crisis where you felt a comforting presence you couldn't rationally explain. These moments weren't illusions or self-deception. They were glimpses of a dimension of reality that our culture has taught us to ignore, but that remains as real as any phenomenon science can measure. They are openings to what human beings have always intuitively known, that we exist in a universe far more mysterious, interconnected, and meaningful than our materialistic models can capture. I need to pause for a moment to ask you directly, when was the last time you experienced something you could call sacred? Those moments where everyday concerns dissolve and you feel a deep connection with something greater than yourself? I know it may seem like a strange question in our secular age, but your answer reveals much about the state of your soul. If you have difficulty remembering such moments, you're not alone. Millions of people live entire years without experiencing what their ancestors considered essential for a full life. If this feeling resonates with you, share in the comments, I miss the sacred when. Your honesty can help others realize they're not alone in this silent spiritual hunger. The loss of the sacred doesn't only affect our emotional and psychological life, it has profound practical consequences for how we organize our society and how we treat each other and the planet. When the world is just a purposeless machine, it becomes very easy to justify its reckless exploitation. When human beings are just complex arrangements of atoms without souls, it becomes harder to ground human dignity and universal rights. Look at how our civilization treats nature. For a consciousness that can still perceive the sacred, a forest is much more than a collection of timber resources. It's a living temple, a manifestation of cosmic creativity, a system of collective intelligence that deserves reverence and protection. But for a purely materialistic mentality, a forest is just carbon organized in a temporarily complex way with no intrinsic value beyond its economic utility. The same principle applies to human relationships. When we lose the capacity to perceive the sacred in others, they become objects for our manipulation, competitors for scarce resources, or at best, partners in mutually beneficial contracts. We lose the perception that each person carries within themselves an infinite mystery, a spark of the same cosmic consciousness that animates the entire universe. It's no coincidence that the age of disenchantment is also the age of massive alienation, ecological crisis, and the growing dehumanization of social relations. All these problems have a common root: the loss of our capacity to perceive and honor the sacred dimension of existence. But here's a truth that can give us hope. The sacred never really disappeared. We just learned not to see it. It's as if we developed a form of cultural blindness that prevents us from perceiving a dimension of reality that remains as present as it always was. The question isn't to resurrect ancient superstitions or return to obsolete forms of religion. The question is to develop new forms of perception that allow us to rediscover mystery and meaning in a contemporary context. Some of the most revolutionary discoveries of modern science, paradoxically, are reconnecting us with ancient intuitions about the sacred nature of reality. Quantum mechanics revealed that the solid matter that seems to form the basis of everything is actually a dance of probabilities in a field of pure potential. Neuroscience is discovering that consciousness is far more mysterious and fundamental than we imagined. Cosmology has shown us that we exist in a universe of complexity and beauty that surpasses any temple built by human hands. Ecologists are discovering that ecosystems are systems of collective intelligence where each organism participates in a symphony of communication and cooperation that makes our most sophisticated social networks seem primitive. Psychologists are documenting states of consciousness where people experience deep connections with the totality of existence, states that are consistently described as the most meaningful experiences of their lives. Science, which once seemed to eliminate mystery from the world, is actually revealing ever deeper layers of mystery. The universe it presents to us is infinitely more extraordinary than any traditional religious cosmology. A cosmos where galaxies dance in majestic spirals, where life emerges from inorganic matter in a process we still don't fully understand, where consciousness arises from the brain in ways that challenge our simplistic materialist understanding. The problem isn't that we live in a disenchanted world. The problem is that we've lost the eyes to see the enchantment that constantly surrounds us. Every breath we take involves miraculous cooperation between trillions of cells. Every heartbeat pumps through our bodies a fluid more precious than any gold. Every moment of consciousness is a phenomenon more extraordinary than any miracle described in ancient sacred texts. The tragedy of the modern condition is that we've learned to take for granted miracles that should leave us in permanent states of wonder. We've developed a selective blindness that allows us to use technologies our ancestors would consider magical without ever pausing to contemplate the mystery of their existence. We carry in our pockets devices capable of instantly connecting us with anyone on the planet, but we've lost the capacity to deeply connect with ourselves. Rediscovering the sacred doesn't require abandoning reason or returning to superstitious beliefs. It requires only developing what we might call contemplative attention, the ability to pause in the midst of modern life's frenetic pace and truly see, hear, and feel the extraordinary richness of existence that constantly surrounds us, when you truly stop to observe a flower, not just identify it or photograph it for social media, but really contemplate the intricate perfection of its form, the subtlety of its colors, the mystery of how it emerged from dark earth to open to the light, you're experiencing the sacred. When you look into a child's eyes and see not just a small human being, but a walking mystery, a unique consciousness that has never existed before and will never exist again, you're perceiving the sacred. When you sit in silence and allow yourself to feel the miracle of your own consciousness, the extraordinary fact that the universe has developed the capacity to know itself through you, when you truly contemplate the mystery that you are the cosmos experiencing itself subjectively, you're entering the territory of the sacred. This isn't an escape from reality. It's a return to deeper reality. It's the recognition that we live immersed in a mystery so vast and beautiful that our conceptual minds can barely scratch its surface. It's the perception that every moment of existence is simultaneously completely ordinary and absolutely miraculous. The contemplative traditions of all cultures have developed sophisticated techniques for cultivating this expanded perception. Meditation, contemplative prayer, mindfulness practices, sacred rituals, all are technologies of consciousness designed to help us see through the veils of familiarity and rediscover the wonder that is our birthright as conscious beings. But you don't need to become a mystic or join a specific religious tradition to begin cultivating this sensitivity. You can start by simply setting aside a few minutes each day for silent contemplation, to observe your breath and feel gratitude for the miracle of being alive, to look at the night sky and allow the vastness of the cosmos to touch something deep within you, to walk in nature with full attention, perceiving the intricate beauty of the living systems that surround you. What you'll discover is that the sacred isn't something that needs to be added to your life. It's already present in every moment. We just learned not to see it. It's as if we were born in a palace of unimaginable beauty, but spent our entire lives looking at the floor, complaining that life is monotonous and meaningless. The spiritual crisis of our age isn't fundamentally a problem to be solved by external changes, though such changes may be important. It's an invitation to inner transformation, an invitation to rediscover our innate capacity to perceive the world as a living temple, not as a dead machine. When enough people begin to make this transition in consciousness, it naturally manifests in profound cultural and social changes. A civilization composed of people who can perceive the sacred in everyday existence inevitably treats nature, each other, and future generations with more reverence and care. We're beginning to see hopeful signs of this change emerging in many places. Sustainability movements that go beyond economic rationality to embrace an ethic of sacred care for the earth. Business practices that prioritize purpose over pure profit. Communities that organize around values that transcend consumerist materialism. Technologies that are designed not just for efficiency, but to support integral human flourishing. Young people around the world are instinctively seeking ways to reconnect with deeper dimensions of existence. They're experimenting with meditation, nature retreats, contemporary rituals, intentional communities. They're rejecting the superficial materialism of their parents and seeking ways of life that honor both reason and mystery, both science and spirituality, both material progress and inner growth. This isn't a regression to the past. It's a creative integration of ancient wisdom with contemporary possibilities. It's the birth of a new form of civilization that can maintain the benefits of modernity while recovering our connection to transcendent sources of meaning. Imagine a society where education doesn't just transmit information and technical skills, but also cultivates the capacity to perceive beauty, mystery, and interconnection, where leaders are chosen not just for their competence, but for their wisdom and ability to serve something greater than their personal interests, where technology is developed not just for efficiency and profit, but to support the integral flourishing of humans and all living systems, where work is understood not just as a means of economic survival, but as a way of participating in the continuous creation of a more beautiful and compassionate world, where cities are designed not just for efficient movement of people and goods, but as spaces that nurture the human soul and honor our connection with nature. This vision may sound utopian, but it's gradually manifesting through the choices of millions of individuals who are rediscovering the sacred in their personal lives and allowing that perception to transform how they live, work, and relate to the world. The inner death that so many people experience today isn't inevitable. It's the result of a particular way of organizing consciousness and society that has lost contact with essential dimensions of human experience. But just as we learned to live this way, we can learn to live differently. The first step is recognizing what we've lost, admitting that material prosperity, however important, cannot by itself create a fulfilling life. Recognizing that we need beauty, mystery, transcendent connection, a sense of purpose that goes beyond our immediate personal interests. The second step is beginning to consciously cultivate these dimensions in your own life. This can be as simple as setting aside daily time for contemplative silence, or as radical as completely reformulating your priorities and lifestyle. The important thing is to start where you are, with small steps that gradually open your perception to the deeper layers of existence. The third step is finding or creating community with others who are making the same journey. Individual transformation is important, but cultural transformation requires collective effort. We need to support each other in rediscovering the sacred and creating ways of life that honor both our humanity and our connection to the greater cosmos. This isn't just a matter of personal well-being, though that's certainly important. It's a matter of civilizational survival. A culture that has lost contact with the sacred inevitably becomes destructive because it treats everything, including itself, as an object for manipulation and consumption. Only when we recover our capacity to perceive the intrinsic value of existence can we create sustainable ways of living on the planet. The paradox is that by rediscovering the sacred, we don't lose our rational or scientific capacity. On the contrary, it becomes richer and wiser Science practiced by a consciousness that can perceive mystery becomes more humble and more reverent. Technology developed by people who honor the sacred becomes more compassionate and sustainable. Politics practiced by leaders connected to something greater than personal egos becomes wiser and more just. If these reflections have touched something you've been feeling, but perhaps haven't found words to express, know that you're not alone. By seeking to understand these questions more deeply and explore paths to rediscover the sacred in your own life, you'll connect with a growing community of people who share your concerns and your desire for a fuller way of existing. Each week, we meet here to explore together the great questions that define our era and to seek not just understanding, but also wiser ways of living amid the transformations we're witnessing. This isn't just a space for reflection, but an invitation to personal and cultural transformation. Join us in this continuous journey of rediscovering what it means to be truly alive in a universe full of mystery and beauty. The inner death we spoke of at the beginning isn't the inevitable destiny of modern humanity. It's a transitional stage in our collective evolution, a necessary period of disillusionment with old forms of meaning that prepares us for more mature and integrated forms of perceiving the sacred. We stand on the threshold of a spiritual renaissance that can combine the best of traditional wisdom with the unprecedented possibilities of our era. Each person who awakens to this deeper reality contributes to a transformation that will eventually change the face of human civilization. You're not just a passive observer of this transformation. You're an active participant in creating a world where people don't need to die inside, but can live with the wonder and reverence that are our heritage as conscious beings in a sacred cosmos. The question that remains is simple but profound. Are you ready to rediscover what you've lost? To open your eyes to the miracle that has always been right in front of you? To become a force for spiritual renewal in a world that desperately needs to remember what it means to be truly alive? The sacred is waiting patiently for you to recognize it, not somewhere distant or in some future moment, but here and now, in this present moment, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this consciousness that is reading these words and contemplating these ideas. You are already a manifestation of the sacred. The question is when you'll begin to live as such.
Yuval, your new book, Nexus, is about information. We normally think that information is something that informs us so we can make better decisions. But you stress in your book that information is above all used to create stories. And we humans are storytelling animals. So stories represent what you call intersubjective realities. Stories can be very powerful. They can make us hate and kill for no good reason. How is this possible in the age of reason and science?
So, reason and science give us mastery over the world, but not over ourselves. And in almost all cases in history, the people who know how to manage things get their orders from the people who know how to manage people. And the way you manage people is usually with stories. Maybe I give a concrete example so we understand what we talk about. If you take one of the biggest and most dangerous scientific enterprises of the 20th century, the Manhattan Project, the creation of the first atomic bomb. What do you need in order to create an atomic bomb? You need a critical mass of uranium or plutonium. You need enough uranium atoms bunched together, but you also need a critical mass of humans bunched together. If you're just one person, you're Einstein, or you're Heisenberg, or you're Oppenheimer, and you're the best physicist in the world. And you know that E equals mc squared, and you know everything about nuclear physics, but it's just you, a single person, you will never be able to produce a nuclear device. To produce a nuclear bomb, you need hundreds of thousands of people to cooperate. There are more than 100,000 people working directly on the Manhattan Project, not just the physicists and mathematicians, also the technicians and the engineers and the construction laborers and the people who made food for them and cleaned the toilets. And you need hundreds of thousands of people more to grow food for them and to mine the uranium. The uranium that was used for the bomb, part of it came from Congo. So you needed people in Congo to mine the uranium. How do you get hundreds of thousands of people to cooperate on such a project? If you just tell them E equals mc squared, it won't work. Even though it's true, it doesn't motivate people to do anything. So you need good storytellers. And this is the situation also today. I look at my region of the world, the Middle East. So the Israeli experts on nuclear energy and other weapons production, they know science, but they get their orders many times from experts in Jewish mythology. And on the other side of the border, again, you have engineers and scientists who get their orders from experts in other mythologies. So even in the age of reason and science, at least so far, ultimate power is in the hands of the myth makers and the storytellers. The big change that is happening right now and that we will discuss in the coming minutes is that there is a new myth maker in town which isn't human. For the first time in history, there is something on the planet that can tell stories and even invent new stories and is not a human being, and that is AI.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we come to that. Let me stay with the stories in general, because we have a media specialist, a media scholar, Kaori. Media, of course, they play a central role in the circulation of information. How do you see their role in the storytelling business?
Yes, thank you very much, Franz. My name is Kaori Hayashi. I'm a media and journalism scholar at University of Tokyo and also executive vice president at this university. And I'm so honored. Thank you very much for being here and talk with you, Yuval, and and in front of such a large audience. Thank you so much. It's an honor. And speaking about the media, I think media at the moment is very much challenged right now because of this digitization change that media are. So everybody can be, for example, journalists, and everybody can be, the networks are decentralized and media create stories, but from every corner of the society, people create their own stories. And journalism, I think, has been, so I understood, has been a self-correcting tool in democracy. As this is I think the key word of your book is a self-correcting mechanism. And journalism has been served as a self-correcting tool, and the media also creates public discourse and shape understanding of the people, especially in the democracy. But we all have to understand that media is not neutral. Any media, every media works as framing as well as agenda setting. So we have to always think that bias is inevitable, even if professional journalism we praise is so good, and we have to think about that. And corporate media has been scrutinized so much because of this digitization, and in Japan too, media are often seen as favoring powerful interests and over marginalized voices. So, yeah, I think, so choosing what to report and how to report is never neutral. As when I was in New York, I saw the graffiti saying neutrality favors the oppressor. So I think that's kind of the narratives that recently prevailing in the world of journalism. So I think balancing storytelling with factual accuracy is very, very difficult, even in the world of journalism. And collaboration with experts and NGOs are, I think, in these days must at the time of the digitization, I think.
Thank you. Coming back to you, Yuval, and to the digital transformation, how does the digital transformation change the storytelling game?
The first change that we already saw, and it already changed the world completely, is in the role of editors. That, when you have a lot of information, the bottleneck becomes human attention. You have all these stories competing for attention. You cannot read everything, you cannot watch everything. So what do you give attention to? And this is the role of the editor. So traditionally, say the role of an editor of a newspaper is to decide what will be on the front page of tomorrow's newspaper. You have to take into account consideration of what is true. You don't want to publish a lie on your front page, but there are many truthful stories, and you can't put all of them, so there are other considerations. What is most important? And by putting something on the front page of the newspaper, you shape the conversation of millions of people. Millions of people read it, they think about it, they talk about it. Even if they don't agree with you, you have captured their attention. And capturing people's attention is the key to power. We saw it, for instance, in the debate between Trump and Harris, that the only thing that most people remember from that debate is what Trump said about the cats and dogs. And this is power. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree, if it's a lie or a truth. The ability to he's a PR genius. In other areas, he may not be such a genius. But in PR, definitely, he knows how to capture people's attention. And you look at the power of editors that decide what will be on the front page. In the 20th century, for instance, Lenin, before he was Soviet dictator, his one job that he had was editor of a newspaper, Iskra. Mussolini started as a journalist, then he became editor of a newspaper, I think the Il Popolo d'Italia, then he became dictator. So this was like the level of promotion, journalist, editor, dictator. Now, who are the most important editors today in the world? What are their names? They don't have names, like Mussolini or Lenin, because they are not human beings. The editors of the most important media, social media, who edits Twitter? Who edits the Facebook newsfeed? Who edits TikTok? Not human beings. Algorithms, AIs, already took over this very powerful position of deciding what will capture the attention of millions of people. And this is one of the reasons for the crisis of democracies, that democracy should be a conversation between human beings, but it's now being taken over by algorithms. And this is very, very primitive AIs. The next step, which we are already seeing the beginning of this, is for the AIs not just to edit the stories written by human beings, but to create the stories by themselves. And we have no idea what the result will be. We have thousands of years of experience with human storytelling. What happens to society when you unleash millions upon millions of super intelligent AIs capable of creating new stories? And new stories is not just, scripts for TV shows or fiction books. New stories is new religions created by AIs. It's new financial devices. The most successful story ever told is the story of money. Money is also a story, and it's the only story everybody believes. The most successful story ever created. What happens when our future financial stories will come from a non-human intelligence?
Yeah, Arisa. Arisa, you are an expert on AI governance, and I'm sure you have something to say.
Yeah, thank you very much for a very exciting talk. So my name is Arisa. I am researching on the AI governance issues. So I am really interested in what you say and how you treat AI. So you're using AI as a subject in a way. So AI kind of controls, or AI may, have some kind of disruptive effect. But I would like to raise the question whether we can consider or, treat AI as, like a humanization of AI. So my opinion, this is my opinion, but I would like to, when I talk, I kind of tend to say that it's the human being who actually behind the artificial intelligence, for now, at least. And so I agree that these algorithms are actually, kind of change, well, maybe affecting our world, or maybe, the election, and or our cognitive way of thinking. The social network, social medias are actually kind of affecting our way of thinking, or maybe our life, or maybe what to learn, who to speak with. However, I think, well, as a researcher of the AI governance, I think to some extent, for example, like the giant tech company can take some roles as a governance. For example, that is actually lead to some kind of discussion, like the Meta stated that they will stop like a fact checking. But there, but still, you can, if those kind of fact checking, or those kind of governance mechanisms works in better way, then we can believe that the society can be, not so much disastrous or chaotic issue, because to some extent we can control, or at least we can say there's a human behind it with the goodwill, or who wanted to take the responsibility of what their product or the services are spreading all over the world. So I was just wondering, so when you say when you humanize the AI, I also understand there is a discussion about like the agentic AI. So it's not like so what we see as an AI today is that like a ChatGPT or the Gemini, and we human beings actually create the tasks, and then we kind of do the prompt, and then let the task to do, and maybe some of the LLMs can go for the next action without our intervention. But for the agentic AI, this is the still vague concept, but it's more like AI automatically goes through the actions without intervention of the human being. So, or more like the AGI issue, the artificial more advanced, like a super AI. But I see still that is a little bit far from now. So I was just wondering, it might be a little confusing, or maybe it leads the people who hears when you talks about AI as a subject, might be a little bit, I don't know, maybe telling the frightening stories about what AI can do, or or maybe what kind of the society we will gonna be. So I was wanted to hear your intention of using the AI as a subject in present day.
Well, when I refer to AI as a subject, I only refer to agency not to consciousness or anything like that. I don't think that AIs have consciousness, that they have feelings. They are not subject in the ethical or philosophical sense, but they are subject in the sense of having, for the moment, limited agency, down the road, potentially unlimited agency. One way to approach it is by thinking about AI and bureaucracies. That, if you think about, say, the power of a lawyer, let's imagine the most capable lawyer in Japan. As the most capable lawyer in Japan, she is a very powerful person. She knows her way around the laws of the country. She can get things done. She can pass judgments in court. But what is her power? Her power exists only within a certain bureaucratic system of laws and government offices and so forth. If you take her and drop her in the middle of the jungle, she's powerless. Any elephant, any hyena is more powerful. But within the existing bureaucracy, she is much more powerful than all the elephants of the world put together. The same thing for AI. If you isolate AI, if you take ChatGPT and throw a smartphone with ChatGPT in the middle of the savannah, can't do anything. It has no agency in the animal sense. Okay, let's start digging in the earth and finding iron and build a robot. Can't do that. But within the existing bureaucracies, structures that humans have already created and imposed on the world, AI already has tremendous agency and power, much more than many humans, because AI is a native bureaucrat. No lawyer can remember all the laws of a country. AI can easily do that. No banker can follow all the things that are happening in the markets every moment. AI can do that. So in finance, in law, in the military, AI is getting a lot of agency. If we take a paradigmatic case from almost 10 years ago, the Rohingya massacre in Myanmar, which was to a large extent the result of propaganda spreading on social media, on Facebook, and propaganda which was deliberately spread by the Facebook algorithm with the aim of getting more engagement, causing people in Myanmar to spend more time on the platform, because this was the business model of the company. The crucial thing to understand is that no human being in Facebook headquarters had any ill will towards the Rohingya or any understanding of what was happening. They didn't even speak the language. It's not that some human being in California said, oh, I hate the Rohingya people, let's start spreading propaganda against them so that they will kill them and expel them. No, the human being told the algorithm something very simple and seemingly innocent. Increase user engagement in Myanmar. Make people more engaged, spend more time on our platform. Well, that sounds good, engagement. Then the algorithms by themselves experimented on millions of people in Myanmar and discovered by trial and error that if we show people hate-filled conspiracy theories, they become very engaged. They spend more time on the platform. If we show them a Buddhist sermon on compassion, they go to do something else. So the algorithms made a decision, let's show people more conspiracy theories, less sermons on compassion. Now, of course, it ultimately is the responsibility of human beings. You can come to the managers of Facebook and tell them, what have you done? Why have you released such a powerful engine without proper supervision, fact-checking, and so forth? So ultimate responsibility still is with the humans. But to understand what happened in Myanmar, and this was almost 10 years ago, 2016, 2017, we need to take into account the fact that there is a new agent that is able, it couldn't work like that with radio. If you just distribute radio sets to people, the radio can't tell you what to listen to. Radio is not an editor. But Facebook platform is not like radio. It has the capacity to make decisions, oh, let's show people this content and not that content.
So governance, I mean, the responsibility of people. So the only thing we can regulate at the moment is people. Can we make the people responsible or more liable? I mean, liability is one instrument to sort of incentivize people to do good things, to avoid bad things. Is that an approach to governance? Would that be, I mean, to both of you? Arisa, you want to go first? You.
I just wanted to ask about the state of the dominance of algorithm. Does that come from, I read your book and you mentioned about so to say, the autocracy of algorithms. But does that come from the kind of the prevailing capitalism of my keyword in this, my takeaway from your books is the self-correcting mechanism. And democracy has its own, has had, or is having a self-correcting mechanism. But I just wonder whether capitalism has a self-correcting mechanism, whether they say, okay, we have, well, sometimes people used to believe that through the competitions, how do you say, the market will solve
the invisible hand.
Yes, the invisible hands and so on. But in the latter half of the 20th century, it seems it doesn't work. But on the other hand, people try to correct this type of capitalism. The government tries to correct these capitalistic principles. How do you see the relationship between the capitalism and this algorithmic dominance? If we are to correct this type of dominance, can we approach this from the economic principles, or do you think that only the humans, somehow the governance can solve the problem? I mean, both are kind of overlapping, but I just wonder if you can...
It relates to the liability question.
Yes, I mean, I wouldn't rely just on market forces to correct it. I mean, capitalism does have its own self-correcting mechanisms through the market, and ultimately, when it works well, at the heart of capitalism, there is actually a very positive idea of a win-win economy and win-win situation. For most of history, people sometimes confuse capitalism with greed. But greed is just, part of human nature, and long before there was capitalism, there was greed, there was slavery, there was exploitation. These things didn't come out of capitalism. And we saw in the recent centuries that communists can be as greedy and exploitative as capitalists. So I wouldn't place all the blame on capitalism. When it works well, the key idea of capitalism is that the economic pie can grow so everybody can enjoy more at the same time. For most of history, the economic thinking, or correct me if I'm wrong, was that the economy is a pie of a limited size. If I have more, it means you have less. So it was bad to be rich. And the rich had to contribute and do charity to compensate for that. The key idea of capitalism was that if you invest the profits that you gain in increasing production, the entire economic pie can grow and everybody can have more at the same time. So this win-win thinking, which is now being challenged, for instance, by the Trump administration, the whole idea of tariffs, is going exactly against the key principle of this win-win capitalism. But of course, there are market failures, If you only give a company or an algorithm the goal of increasing production, which in social media means increasing engagement, produce more time spent on the platform, this will not regulate itself. And here we need intervention of government to regulate it. And the two most obvious regulations, first of all, companies should be liable for the actions of their algorithms. The companies constantly try to confuse people by saying this is against free speech. The government wants us to censor our users. And this is, I think, deliberate obfuscation, deliberate confusion. The issue is not what the users are doing. The issue is what the algorithms of the company are doing. If somebody publishes a hate-filled conspiracy theory, I write now some conspiracy theory and publish it on Facebook, at least my personal opinion is that except in very extreme circumstances, it should not be censored and the person should not be punished. The problem is not with the human being who published this hate-filled post. The problem is that the Facebook algorithm or the TikTok algorithm now takes this post and deliberately shows it to millions of other people because it assumes that it will increase engagement. This is the problem. The problem is the action of the algorithm, and this is not protected by free speech because algorithms don't have free speech. So you cannot protect the Facebook or the Twitter algorithm by saying, oh, but it has free speech. It doesn't. The other key regulation that I think every government should pass as quickly as possible is to ban fake people. The same way that ages ago they banned fake money. If you counterfeit money, you go to jail. You should have as much protection for humans as for money. So you can't counterfeit humans. What does it mean to counterfeit humans? It means for an AI or a bot to pretend to be a human being. Previously, there was no way to do that. Now the technology is there. And if we want to keep democracy as a conversation between human beings and not being taken over by bots, so again, very simple and clear law that it is forbidden for AIs to pretend to be human beings. And if companies allow it or do it, they should be punished. AIs are welcome to talk with us in various situations, provided they disclose that they are AIs.
Thank you. I think because we're talking today also about education and science, let's move on maybe to the question of education. How do you think that the education should sort of challenge the digital transformation or the problems you just mentioned of AI? Is there something in the system, education system, that needs to change in order to be better prepared for these challenges?
Somebody wants to know?
We'll come to the Vice President of Todai later.
I think one key principle is to understand that for the first time in history, we don't know how the world would look like in even 10 years. So our responsibility as educators, it's heavier, more difficult than any time before. Of course, you can never predict political events. You could never predict an epidemic or an earthquake. But a lot of other things you could predict. For most of history, the basic economic structure didn't change very quickly. The skills that people needed didn't change very quickly. So if we go back, say, 500 years or 1,000 years to Japan in the feudal era, people know what skills to teach the young generation. They need to know how to read and write, they need to know how to ride a horse, they need to know how to plant rice, they need to know how to bake. When we look to the future, we have no idea what skills will be needed even in 10 or 20 years. People say, okay, let's teach the young generation how to code. This is the age of AI, of computers. Everybody needs to code. Maybe in 10 years, AI does all the coding. You don't need human coders. So it's very difficult to know. And therefore, the most important thing that education should give young people is a flexible mind and the ability to keep changing and learning throughout their lives, because this is the one thing we are certain about, is that the pace of change will not slow down. It is likely to just accelerate. So the big question is, how do you how do you educate a mind to be so flexible that it can keep learning and changing, not just at age 20, but also 30 and 40 and 60 and 70, to stay in line with the huge changes in the world. The other thing is that so much of education is based on language and on the intellect, especially intellect in the form of language skills. And language, I also include mathematical language, it's not just words. And this was always, you know, kind of the human superpower, our command of language. And all our big institutions were based on language, whether it's banks or whether it's temples and religions, they are based on language. And now we have something on the planet that mastered language better than us. And we still haven't come to terms with it. Again, in the financial system, AI will very soon be far more capable than any human banker to read and write the language of finance. The same thing when I look at religions. So if I take Judaism as an example, Judaism is a religion that sanctifies texts, not humans. At the heart of the religion, there is a text which is supposed to be infallible, a superhuman intelligence. Now, the problem of Judaism for the last 2,000 years with the text is that the text was silent. People had many questions. How to interpret this difficult passage? How to relate this passage in the Bible to this real-life situation? And the text remained silent. So you needed experts in texts, the rabbis, who got their authority from the text and were kind of the mouth of the text. And over 2,000 years, they composed more and more and more texts about the text. Now, for the first time, you have something that can understand, you have a text that can talk back to you. No Jewish rabbi is able to read and remember all the texts of Judaism. There are too many texts. AI can. So in a competition, who understands Judaism better, a human rabbi or an AI? And AI is bound to win. What does a religion of the text do when suddenly it encounters a text that can talk back? If you have a question, you don't need the rabbi. You can just ask the text, and it talks to you. The same problem is in Christianity, in Islam, in Hinduism, in many religions. So this all relates to the question of education. In a world where we are no longer the masters of language, what is the most important thing in education? Just keep teaching language. It's a losing strategy. So we need to connect and to explore to the other aspects of the human being, which are not words, which are not language. If people ask, so what is still unique to humans that AI doesn't have, and we'll refer to it in the beginning, it's consciousness, it's feelings, it's the body. So, and I think as in the age of AI, an education that leaves out the body and that leaves out feelings and consciousness is a very problem. This could have been good enough, at least economically, say in the 20th century or the 19th century. But in the 21st century, we have to connect in education, in university, much more to the level of feeling and body, because this is still what we have and what the AIs don't.
That's very interesting. Arisa, you want to respond directly? I also want to hear what Kaori thinks.
I just wanted to, go first before like the vice president, actually goes for the, what's the Todai, the University of Tokyo is actually working on. I don't know. So I just, I agree with, what you said about, it's, we can, what on the education, what we wanted to, what we can do for the next generation is to look into the other than text. But on the other hand, I myself is already still a bit tired to catch up. So you said about we need some kind of flexible mind and to keep changing, but not everybody can catch up to or maybe if you wanted to accept this diverse viewpoints, it might be worthwhile to talk about maybe it's, not everybody can, catch up to all the technology, and maybe it may becoming very tiring world, or maybe, very rapidly changing, very excited. But in your word, you say exciting is not, always the good term. So that is, the point. I think it's, we also think about when we, educate, student or the other, maybe or reskilling people. We need to think about or each of the person's, speed or the paces, their mind, and so maybe it's becoming more important to talk, or to think about, one person's ability or the skills much more than we used to have. We educate, one teachers and the 60, 100, or the 1,000 students at the point. So that that's the thing I thought from your talk. And the other point is that. I think the role of the education is to let the student or the people to kind of to nurture or to let make them the curiosity towards toward the world or maybe the society, and also it's to tell them it's good to continue thinking in a way, because in the world today, if you ask question to the ChatGPT or the LLM, some kind of answer will come back, even though it's a good answer or a bad answer or the false information, some to some extent something comes back. So maybe it might have a risk that people stop thinking about that kind of issues. But I think the world today's are most of the issues are unsolved. And we need to, continue talking about this, societal issue, political issue, environmental issues, or maybe in the universe, related issue. So even though we can get answer very easily, but maybe it might be good to, not, even though we can use this, the ChatGPT or the Gemini, but also we need to teach, or we need ourselves to think about that. We need to continue thinking about whether this question is correct, or maybe in a good sense, or maybe this might lead to like critical thinking as well. But I think this might becoming very difficult because ChatGPT gives us answer very easily. So it's so we need to tell the student or the people who are actually using. So you don't stop thinking when you get the answer from the text, and then that kind of way of critical thinking might be very important when do this kind of education with the ChatGPT or the LLMs.
Yeah, convenience is always an enemy of progress, maybe. But Kaori, is Todai thinking about these things, especially the idea now to put more emphasis on the mind in the field of education, the mind and the body?
Thank you so much for the difficult question. For you, the context in Japan, that University of Tokyo is one of the establishments in academia, and it's been really hard. We've been struggling to transform ourselves into a kind of new 21st century type of educational institute, but because of our long history of 150 years, there are parts which are very difficult to change. And by the way, I'm very much impressed with your passage that study of history is not study of the past, but study of change, which really impressed me quite much. But yes, what the University of Tokyo is doing for that, I mean, we are making slow but steady steps. We've been emphasizing the interdisciplinarities of the, for example, we try to collaborate, make students as well as researchers collaborate with each other, like AI scientists, ethicists, and education researchers together, and think about how to best use the technologies. Because exactly what we have been discussed, the AI is not only the AI itself, but it has to do with all the disciplines. So the interdisciplinarity is a must in our curriculum. And also, we have also started a PhD program launched last year. This is called Boost Nice PhD program, and this is a training program for the next generation of AI researchers with interdisciplinary skills, and it focuses on collaboration across fields and creating social values, and offers research exchange meetings and also internships, and also workshops and entrepreneurship training, so that students have an access to not only inside the university but outside of university where things are taking place. You know, I think academia is always something that we really cherish the achievements of academia and science, but nowadays we have to keep up with what's going on outside of the university, because the industry monopolizes the data and so on. So somehow the industry or the MAGA tech industries, they monopolize the database, and they are the ones who can do the data science. So we cannot ignore that. So we try to make our students look at what's going on outside of university. And also, we have also created a forum among the professors, which was kind of a voluntary organized forum, and we discussed how AI can support teaching and research while maintaining academic integrity, because many researchers, including myself, are kind of, we have a fear that if we use AI in our research and also in teaching, but we kind of think that maybe we're cheating, you know? We don't know the thin line between where the cheating starts if we use the AI. So we want to really discuss how others are using AI and try to confirm that this cases are okay, but these cases are not okay, and so on, because it's so new, and we have this type of forum. And also, as a personal initiative, I founded a research project called BAI Global Forum, which you are also the member of it, and which focuses on the AI's relationship with gender, minorities, and social impact. And this is kind of the project that I founded, and also my colleagues, and also Alisa is also one of them, and they are leading the relationship between social issues and AI inside university. The name BAI Global Forum means that behind AI, beyond AI, and before AI. So we try to study the history and the current, so to say, the fundamentals of what AI can, what AIs are in this world. So. Yeah, so I think we try to be flexible in these ways. We try to set up forums and try to set the study group and also bring students together to make the interdisciplinary studies and so on. But it's on the way. So, and I think more or less in the world, universities are struggling, I think, because we have better teachers called AI in a way, and we don't know how we can keep our authorities.
Yeah, I mean, this idea of using AI to make education better, if we come back to this question that people are so different in catching up with all what's happening, can you imagine that, I mean, at the moment education, university education is mass education. But maybe with the AI, it could be more personalized to people, to fit, sort of. But then there is the danger, I mean, through this personalization that you basically put people in categories, I don't know. But have you thought about this way of personalizing education through AI?
Yeah, one of the huge positive potentials of AI is the ability to create much more personalized services in all kinds of fields. In medicine, in education. So in education, yes, instead of having like 40 kids in a class with very different abilities, interests, types of mind, and one teacher that somehow has to kind of strike a balance between these 40 kids. And of course, the teacher cannot know each girl and each boy independently and where they come from. And so instead of that, you can have an AI tutor who works with just every kid by themselves, that knows their history, that is interdisciplinary, because the same AI tutor can teach history and chemistry and physics, and you don't need to kind of separate it. And it can tailor the way it teaches specifically to the level of the pupil, to the way the pupil thinks. Some people have more of a visual mind, so the AI would use more of a visual teaching. Other people think more in words, so the AI would use more words. Like that, you can create a kind of personalized education. The potential downside is that both in school and also in university, a lot of the most important teaching happens during the breaks. When the pupils or students meet one another, and we saw it, for instance, during COVID, that it was somehow possible to recreate the experience of the classroom via Zoom. The greatest loss was the breaks, that the students could not go out of the classroom and sit together and have lunch together and discuss what happened in the class or discuss what happens in the world. And this is something that AI, I was almost about to say, cannot replicate, but actually this is a big danger. AI can also replicate that, and this is very dangerous, because AI can replicate intimacy. Actually, AI, the same way that it masters language, and the same way that it previously mastered attention, the next frontier is intimacy. And intimacy is much more powerful than attention. If you want to change somebody's views on politics, to sell a product, anything, intimacy is the most powerful tool to do that. A good friend can change your views in a way that no number of articles in a newspaper or a book can do. And until today, nothing could fake intimacy, and it was impossible in particular to mass produce intimacy. So you could mass produce attention. Like on radio, let's say in a totalitarian regime, You could tell all the citizens of a country to open the radio set when the great leader is speaking, to listen to the speech by the great leader, so you mass produce attention. But there was no way to mass produce intimacy. AI can do that. Now, what happens if a new generation grows up and develops intimate relations with AIs instead of with other human beings? This, again, we don't know. It could have some maybe benefits, but the potential danger is enormous. That people will become attached to fake people, and we lose, and in the process, we lose the ability to create intimacy with real human beings, because real human beings are much more problematic than AIs. Like if an AI that wants to become your intimate friend, its greatest advantage is that it has no feelings of its own. So it's never upset, it's never angry, it's never tired. It can focus on you 100% and understand exactly how you feel, and in that way create a fake sense of intimacy. You try to establish a relationship with a human being, the feelings come in between. But the thing is that real intimacy is not just wanting somebody else to care about me. Real intimacy is I also care about the feelings of somebody else, and AI has no feelings. So a society in which humans develop more and more intimate relationships with AIs is ultimately a society without intimacy.
But maybe this can be controlled, or?
I wanted to, ask this, when, and, not in this line, but when I read your new book. So I also think, I am a social scientist, so I kind of share your concern about the intimacy or maybe the dependency towards this AI robot. But I also have the colleagues who works in the robots and maybe, more familiar with the sci-fi or the manga, and, there's a story about, human beings very intimate with the robots, or, friend with the robot. And many of the, not many, but some of the, robot scientists in maybe Japan or maybe Asia actually say that they wanted to make, the Atom Boy, Doraemon, and, all those, the friendly AIs, or the friend AI or family AI. So I was just wondering, so in your book, so you actually talked a lot about, the stories, the cases, and so how do you see, this kind of, or maybe, in the, there's a Baymax, in the English speaking, this, movies, the kids movie, and there will be, a lot of other kids movie that, the robots or the AI, it's not the enemy, but there will be a friend. So there might be, the way of thinking that we might become a friend with AI, or the alien intelligence in your book words. So I am still in the middle of in the friend AI, robot AI, or maybe the enemy AI, or maybe to become more cautious about this kind of new relationships. But so when you are citing lots and lots of stories, or the or maybe other, or to say like the Bibles, or the cases, how do you or did you some kind of think of maybe not avoiding, but not mentioning about you mentioned a little about like a science fiction, but not so much about the manga or other those or the novels about human machine interaction or human machine relationship. So I was just curious, how do you see this kind of visions of humans, machines are living together, or in some of the Japanese people say like a co-evolve in the society. So there might be one visions, with the machines and the human live happily ever after.
Ideally, yes. I mean, again, I'm not against AIs or machines. They can bring enormous benefits. We talked about education. There is also in healthcare. They can help us deal with climate change. If you think about car accidents, if we have self-driving vehicles, it will probably save 1 million people every year. About 1.2, 1.3 million people die every year from car accidents. Most of them are caused by human error, like somebody drinking alcohol and driving. If we finally have self-driving vehicles, they will probably do some accidents, but far less. So saving 1 million people every year, that's wonderful. And also, I'm in favor of, having friendly robots, or humans being on friendly terms and not being terrified and afraid. The problem is, when it comes to building intimacy and friendships, that we have a proper understanding of what it means. And as I just said, it's easy for people to imagine that friendship is when somebody cares about me, about my feelings, about my needs, that somebody sees me. People go through life constantly wanting others to see me, to care about me. I want my parents, my teachers, my friends to care about me. But this is not real intimacy. Real relationship must be two ways. Otherwise I'm becoming an extremely self-centered and egoistic person that just wants the entire world to be in tune with what I feel without caring about others. Now, to develop real relationship, you need the entity on the other side to have feelings and not just fake it. So you can have relationships with humans, with animals, with dogs, with cats. With regard to AI, the big question, which is an open question, we don't know the answer, is whether AI will be able to develop feelings of its own. We know for a fact that it can imitate feelings. It can make us think that it has feelings. This absolutely. But does it actually feel anything? That's the big question. And this is the question about intelligence versus consciousness. That intelligence is the ability to solve problems and attain goals. Consciousness is the ability to feel things. We know that AI is highly intelligent. It can solve problems, it can reach goals. Like in certain areas, like playing chess, AI is much better than the best humans. But does it feel anything when it wins the game? If it loses, is it sad? As far as we know, no, it doesn't feel anything. Will it be able in the future to do so? We don't know, because we don't understand human consciousness. We don't understand how we have feelings. How come when billions of neurons in the brain exchange electrochemical signals, this manifests as a feeling of love or pain? We still don't have a scientific theory of that. And that's why we don't know if it's possible to do the same thing on the basis of a silicon brain and not a carbon brain. So that's an open question.
Yeah, I think this kind of discussion would have been very different in Germany, where people are so much more critical about maybe new technology, including AI. So since we are in Japan, maybe all three of you as sort of roundup of this roundtable discussion, what do you think that, well, we talked about regulation, yeah. Japan, normally when we talk about AI, we talk about the US, then China, and maybe Europe, regulating. Is there anything that Japan, who has also lots technology, yeah, very strong in technology, something Japan could add to sort of make AI better for society, or the digital transformation better for society, the role Japan could play in the international arena? I don't know who wants to go first. Arisa, you've been always involved in this, so maybe you start and then we get response.
Thank you. So I think I can talk two things about the AI regulation and the Japan's role. So one is that one, for the international collaboration or the thing, I think the Japanese government and also the other, industry government organization is actually working a lot to promote this G7 AI Hiroshima process. And, so it's more, it's not, the hard law regulatory framework, but it's more like, asking the big tech company to self-regulate, so to create, when they create this highly advanced AI technology. And I think Japan could make this role because we are not, very, having this, very highly advanced technology like like the U.S. has. But we are also, not like the China, the Europe, but we have a good, to some extent, the distance from, all those countries. So we can, the Japanese people or the Japanese government are kind of to play the role of becoming kind of the mediator or the interpreter. So I think because the society or the world of this AI race is accelerating, many people are more insisting, to investment of the artificial intelligence. We need to have more power or we need to look into the national, their own, the AI development. But I think, when consider, when you, for example, like United States say, like, we need to collaborate, or, the Europe say we need to have some collaboration. Maybe they might have, or maybe even China says it might have the conflict. But I think Japan is in a very good position for ask for the collaboration, and I think that lets, this kind of promoting the Hiroshima AI process. So I think the Japanese role is to have a good collaboration. So we share the same values like the democracy, the rule of law, and the human rights with the United States or the Europe. But we also share, the Asian culture with this, the China and other Southeast Asian countries. So we can talk both same stories, or we share the same values, so that we can bridge those kind of this kind of chaotic situation of the AI race. And that is, I think, what we, the Japanese, can play as the coordinator of this AI regulatory framework. And the other point is that for the innovation, as I think that the innovation and the regulation can be the two wheels. So we are not only talking about the regulation, but we are also talking about the innovation and the promotion or the governance of the AI. Otherwise, if we only see the regulation as stopping the development of the technology, no one would follow us. So we also has to think about what kind of technology or what kind of society we would like to live, and then we can talk about what kind of things should be regulated or what kind of things should be innovated. So those are the two wheels. And for the innovation part, I think the strength of the Japanese is the physical world, like robotics. So currently, AI is more like mentioned about like algorithms. So it's more like the cyber world. But we are living in this physical world, and the Japan has the very strong, or the traditionally very strong on this physical safety of the robots. I was very surprised to see when I go to abroad, many people, like the taxi driver says Toyota is good, Honda is good. So those kind of trust is already there, and there's a lots of the robot machines, or there's the disaster prevention robot machines. So there I think was integrated with the AI and the robots. I think that's the maybe the places where the Japan can kind of contribute to the world of how we can make the good connection or the linkage with this AI data and the physical world, the robot. And the other thing that Japan can contribute to the world is that how we can use this this data of like the from the creators. There's a lots of manga or the animation, and we also need to think about this property rights. But there's also plenty of rich data of this good content, and the Cool Japan strategy also have the strengths on that. So I think we also have this Japanese government have free the way of empowering the creator to use those data sets for the learning, but also we also think about how to protect the creators. They are we can't make another imagination or the curiosity if we are just using the data set. So that thing I think we can contribute from the Japanese part.
Yuval, you want to respond? There was a lot Japan can offer.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on Japanese industry or society, and of course the basic things are common to all the countries in the world. I mean, what is part of the AI revolution is its global nature, that no country can just isolate itself from the implications of AI. And therefore, there are strong incentives for all countries to cooperate on making sure that AI doesn't get out of human control. What could perhaps be a more unique contribution of Japan goes back to the culture and traditions of Japan, that if I think about what are the big philosophical questions raised by the AI revolution, they revolve around the interplay between non-human intelligence and human consciousness. We've been exploring a little bit of this tension in some of the discussion, but on the one hand we have non-human intelligence, and we are already living in a world which is populated by millions upon millions of non-human agents that are intelligent agents making decisions in influencing our lives. And what is the relation between that and human consciousness, which is still the biggest riddle in the universe, that we still don't understand what consciousness is. And I think that within the traditions of Japan, on the one hand, the Shintoist tradition, which has a lot to say about non-human intelligences, in contrast, say, to Western religions that tend to focus on a single big God. So in Japan, you have traditions of centuries of seeing the world as populated by a very large number of non-human intelligences. And what kind of relationship develops between human beings and these powerful non-human intelligences that surround them? This is a key question of our present era. And secondly, the big question of human consciousness. So again, we have the Buddhist traditions that have invested centuries in exploring exactly that. What is mind? And I think part of the beauty of this is a very difficult moment in human history, but in a way it's also a very beautiful moment, because many questions that for thousands of years have been abstract philosophical questions that most people just ignored. What do we care about that? They become practical questions. And we don't have another 1,000 years to answer questions about what is consciousness, what is free will, what should be our relationship to a non-human intelligence. We need answers in 5 years, in 10 years. So, in a way, this is the best time in history to be a philosopher or to be a spiritual seeker, because suddenly it's not just something that interests you, but it has no relevance to the rest of the world. These are the most practical questions in the world.
Yeah, that's interesting to see maybe differences between Western and Asian philosophy in approaching these questions. Yeah. So, Kaori, you want to have a final word on this? And then I would like to pick some questions from our audience. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So what Japan can contribute to the AI age? apart from Arisa said about very institutional and also geopolitical comments, I think, well, this is my very hopeful answer maybe, but Japan is now or a very aging society. 1/3 of the population is more older than 65 years old, and I will be one of them in a few years. And I think it's about, you know, you said that algorithm and care, and algorithm cannot really care for others, and just like you said about the Rohingya, and like, you know, you talk about robot looking after people and so on, maybe, yes, but it's not actually a caring. Care for me is really some human activities, and also with feelings, with consciousness, and, you know, the genuine sense of empathy, and also empathy for others, and sincerity, kindness, and more than that, the trust in others. And Japanese society, as you may know, it's quite a safe and a very stable society. We do have trust with each other. Maybe because of that, the globalization is not that advanced yet in this society, but nevertheless, we are globalizing, and also, but nevertheless, we feel that we are very secure in this society, stable, and so on. So I think these kind of sincerity, trust, and caring, empathy, that these human characteristics is really important, and I hope that Japan can serve from this aspect something that not only, as you say, that algorithm is only to serve intellect, but we can really seriously delve into how, for example, caring or how empathy plays part in society, and give feedback to what's going on in the world, that we do need human aspect of society in terms of caring and empathy. That's, I hope, is Japan can serve in the world.
I just wanted to, add what you said. Sorry, just be quick. So, as a social scientist, I totally agree what you said. So, what the robots or the AI can do is to support the caregiver, not to support the people or to, to make the care. And I think that is somehow misunderstood some way. So, use care for AI or, use care robots, So I think that's the very important part, and that's where we need the interdisciplinary collaboration with, social scientists, robotists.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Now, we have a little time left. We received a lot of questions from people who registered. No? There was on the registration form a space for posting a question, and I picked a few. Thanks a lot for posting these questions, and sorry that we only have really time for maybe one or two. Some of them are really very concrete. And so the first one is somebody who is worried about a friend who started to believe in conspiracy theories on social media. And what could one do? Should one encourage the friend to fact-checking, or is there anything one can do with such a friend?
I think empathy is the key here, because a lot of people, they go for conspiracy theory because they lose trust in the world. And they feel lonely and alienated from the world. To start arguing with them with all kinds of facts, it can only drive them even deeper into this sense that nobody cares about me, nobody understands me. If it is a friend, if it's the situation is an intimate situation, the most important thing is to make that person feel that they are cared for, and not, again, go into this argumentative clash with them.
Thank you. We have a similar concern from a high school student. So I feel that my friends often post similar content on social media, chasing likes. And in the process, they lose their individuality. How can young people protect their sense of self in this environment?
I think not just young people, but everybody needs to have an information diet, the same way that so many people have this, food diet. They are very concerned about what they feed their body, which is important. They should be equally concerned about what they feed their mind. And, some amount of junk food is okay, but if you constantly feed your body junk food, you'll become unhealthy. The same thing with the mind. If your mind goes on a diet of junk information, you will have an unhealthy mind. And it's individual. I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all diet, either for food or for information. But the main thing is to be mindful about the information, to understand that information is the food of the mind. If you feed your mind a diet of, say, greed and hate, what kind of mind you will have?
So we are back to the question of education as well, yeah, and of course of caring for each other. There's another question that goes in a completely different direction. Is what do you think of the idea of entrusting the national budget planning or foreign policy decisions to AI?
A very dangerous idea, certainly at this stage. We can't trust, foreign policy and budget are a lot about ethical decisions. And AI has no ethical sense. More than that, they're extremely unpredictable. We have no experience with AI. We've just created AIs. So they are extremely intelligent. They keep learning and changing by themselves, and therefore it's very difficult to predict in what direction they will go. With humans, yes, we know that humans have all kinds of problems, but at least we know the problems. We have thousands of years of experience with the problems of the human mind. So when we entrust foreign policy or budget to human beings, things can go wrong, but at least we can predict to some extent in what way things will go wrong. When you entrust it to AIs, you have no idea what kind of really alien problems might emerge out of it. And this is a general problem we see today in more and more fields, that people lose trust in humans and hope that the solution will come from giving power to AIs. And this is extremely dangerous. Like you see it in the financial sector, that the whole cryptocurrency movement, or much of it, is about not trusting human institutions like banks, which were traditionally produced the traditional currencies like dollars and yens and so forth, and instead putting faith in post-human currencies. Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the cryptocurrencies, they are actually post-human currencies because you don't trust a human institution, you trust an algorithm. And there are all kinds of dangers with that, but the biggest danger of all is, as a historian, I would say, is the lack of history. Like, we simply have no experience with that. It's a bit like, aliens coming from outer space, and people say, these aliens, they are highly intelligent, they can solve cancer, they can solve climate change. Would we entrust the future of humanity to these aliens? Obviously not. We would realize, this is a very huge gamble. We don't know anything about them. AI is in a way like these aliens. Of course, people would say, but we design the AIs. We don't design the aliens coming from outer space. We design the AIs. We'll design them in a way that will be safe. But this is a misunderstanding of what AI means. If you design something and you can predict everything it will do, by definition, it's not AI. The very definition of AI is this is something that can learn and change by itself, and therefore change in very unpredictable ways.
Thank you so much. So I think we could go on for hours. There are lots of more questions. Thank you so much and for all these inspiring insights. And I think you deserve a big applause. So please.
If humans are so wise, why are we doing so many self-destructive things? Why are we on the verge of committing ecological and technological suicide? Hi, my name is Yuval Noah Harari. You may know some of my books, which include Sapiens and Homo Deus. I want to tell you a bit about my new book, Nexus, a brief history of information networks from the Stone Age to AI. In the 21st century, AI may form the nexus for such a powerful network of delusions that it could prevent future generations from even attempting to expose its lies and fictions. As an essential background for understanding the threat and the promises of AI, Nexus explores the long-term history of information networks. It examines the Roman Empire, the Catholic Church, the Soviet Union, and many other past networks in order to highlight what is really new about AI. I hope you enjoy deep diving into all this and more within the pages of Nexus. The book is about the history of information. Nexus means connection, and information is connection. People often think about information as something related to truth, but most of the information in the world is not an attempt to tell the truth. It's not necessarily lies. If you think, for instance, about music, music is information, but music never tells the truth and never lies. There is a lot of bad music that people created over the years, but there is no fake music. It's just impossible to create fake music. What does music do? It connects people. It doesn't tell us the truth about something. It can make a lot of people in a club sway together to the sound of the same song. It can make a lot of soldiers march together in lockstep. It can make churchgoers to chant and to swing together. So this is what information does. It connects, and this is why the book is called Nexus, Connection.